Folks, Fernando doing our video for the Modern Survivalist, and this is going to be a video about preparedness for older people, survivalism as you grow old. It's going to be a little bit of a longer format video. If that's not your thing, just go watch something else. That's perfectly fine. But if not, stick around. I think it's worth it, especially if you are, getting a little bit older, as we all do eventually. It's always been in the back of my mind, that thing about, what is it that I'm going to be doing as, years go by, you grow a little bit, lose a little bit of those abilities. You're not as strong anymore, you're not as fast anymore, you're a little bit more vulnerable in certain aspects. You're also wiser as well, and maybe better set up in other aspects, which that's a plus. But definitely things are going to be changing, and this is something that I thought about doing a video because I was reading a thread over at Survivalist Boards, a forum. I'll leave the link below. It's a pretty nice place, and I'm usually there discussing and exchanging ideas and that sort of thing. But it was I think it's a pretty good idea to talk about that sort of stuff. Some of the things people were saying were, mostly the first thing that popped up was medicines. Older folks gonna be needing meds and such, and people were saying, get at least 90 days worth of drugs or medicines, whatever it is that you may be needing, and that your doctor, if you explain things well, he's likely to give it to you, give you write you something for you to get it. And preparedness is a lot mainstream than it used to be, so your doctor is more likely these days than ever to understand why is it that you're doing that. Explain that you want to have a supply in case there's a storm, in case there's something that prevents you from moving, and you want to have that. Your doctor is more than likely to give it to you. And we're also talking about drinking my mate here, which is always nice, and talking about more stuff like when you're bedridden, when diapers for adults, that sort of thing, which man, it is a reality. It's stuff that people eventually end up needing, and there's really no shame in that, and it's far more realistic than worrying about zombies all the time, which never actually come. So people were saying that having the adult diapers, having supplies for people that are bedridden when they get skin injuries and rash and that sort of stuff, supplies for that sort of thing. I think it's wise, to prepare, keeping that in mind. Being one of the things that I always focus in terms of modern survivalism is keep it real, be realistic as of what is it that you're likely to face in life. This isn't just something that's likely to happen. This is going to be unavoidable. This is going to be, unless you're dead, you're going to be growing old. So it makes a ton of sense to prepare for it and keep it in mind. Also stuff like the kind of house that you're going to be living in. Are you going to be able to move along stairs as easily? One of the things I always think about is most places I've been in most houses I've lived in have had stairs, and the truth is, when you're older, there's a good chance that eventually that will be a problem for you. So if stuff I've talked about with my wife, once you are a certain age, try to stick to a house that has just one level, or at least a house in which you can where you can stick to a lower level and not have to go upstairs. Maybe have a house where you have a bedroom that can be moved to a lower level and you stick around there mostly. So those are things that, at least for me, make a ton of sense. Then there's something I always remember, which is my good friend Captain Rick from Argentina, an American living over there. And Rick had a nice dog. He said it was a dog Argentino bulldog mix, something like that. Anyway, it was a big dog, big white dog. And he mentioned something that always stuck in my mind, which is that he would go around for a walk in the neighborhood, and always with his dog. And the dog kept most of the street rats away. And that makes perfect sense. It actually goes along the lines of stuff I've read in books about crime in South Africa, where criminals definitely do not like dogs. And that's the same for most criminals around the world. If you have a bigger breed dog, usually they will try to avoid it and look for someone that hasn't got one, or at least is not walking with one on the streets. It still can happen, but it's just one of those things that improves your odds, even in your own home, keeping a larger dog. And as you grow older, maybe it's going to be also good company for you as well. So, just stuff to keep in mind, and role play in your head. How is it that different situations may end up working out for you, and how you can improve odds in your favor. Also a lot about stuff regarding awareness and avoiding problems to begin with. And I don't know if this is, I've been actually working on this for my next book, and my next book is going to be a lot about little tips and pieces of advice and all of this stuff worked in graphics and little drawings and stuff like this. It sounds silly, but even the way in which you walk on the sidewalk, it's not the same. Who's going to be in what, regarding the street. If you're going to be having your dog, it's usually a better idea to have it closer to the street, where on the street side, where if you have, one of the things that happens a lot in Argentina is motochorros, which is guys in motorcycles. Many of them are criminals. Actually, I think it was in Buenos Aires, they were saying like half of the guys that you see in a motorcycle, when you see two of them, 50% chance that they are actually criminals trying to snatch purses or stuff like that. So it's actually a good idea to put your dog on the side of the street rather than yourself. It's going to be the thing that the criminal has to go through before reaching you. So this is the kind of stuff I'm going to be doing a lot in the next book. I don't know if that's something you'd be interested or not. Let me know in the comments section if it makes sense. I always want to do this, and I have tons of these little notebooks with drawings, with ideas, with thoughts, and little techniques or tips that actually work well. So that's what's going to be going in there. So getting back to this video specifically regarding the topic here, even the kind of gun that you have as well. As you know, my Glock is the gun I favor the most, the gun I like the most. Now, I was I was actually in a shooting competition, and I was shooting next to an older gentleman, and I was talking with another guy, eating our humble pie regarding how bad we were both shooting and such, and the guy next to us, the older gentleman, tipped in and he said, "I'm not seeing my sights." The range is it's an indoor range where light is not that great, but the guy was definitely not seeing his sights. That's why he wasn't hitting his target. He was doing somewhat okay, but definitely having quite a bit of a bad group going on there, but he was having problems with his sights. So the kind of sights that you have in your gun definitely come into play as well. Maybe you're going to be having, now I keep these ones, which are the night sights. They are okay. They are quite bright when it's dark and such. I'm fine with this. But maybe as you grow older, maybe one of those high visibility sights with the fiber optic stuff that's like a little lamp in there, that makes a lot of sense as well. So that sort of stuff. Even if you are maybe losing a little bit of strength, maybe you're even changing your gun entirely and going with a revolver. It may happen. That may be the case, and there's really nothing wrong with a good old revolver as well. It's a little bit less demanding in terms of hand strength so as to operate. Sure, I'm going to be favoring a Glock whenever possible, but there's nothing wrong with this, and it's a very capable firearm. So for some people that have a little bit more of a limited hand strength, this makes quite a bit of sense. Maybe with a different type of load and 38 special instead of 357 Magnum. But all these things, the kind of stuff that you are thinking of and preparing ahead of time and making these little adjustments, okay? So maybe I'm not shooting as much with my Glock because the gun that I'm actually keeping for home defense is a revolver. So what point does it make to shoot a lot with my Glock if the thing that I'm going to be sticking to is a revolver? Maybe I start shooting IPSC with a revolver instead. Guys, I know in my range, there's a guy that has to be 70 years old in a wheelchair and he's still shooting. So there's really no reason for you to stop shooting no matter how old you are. There's actually a guy that he was shooting last time that has to be 70 something, and he's been a target shooter all his life, and he was now starting with IPSC. He said, I see you younger guys shooting this thing, and he thought I'd get in. And he shot definitely slower, but he was extremely accurate because of an entire life of target shooting. So he did quite well when it came down to it. So, and yes, of course, health is a major concern as you grow older. But also, it's not just about stockpiling medicines, it's also about eating healthy as well, which is something that I don't think people do enough. Older or younger, doesn't matter. People eat a lot of crap, and it's super easy to eat relatively healthy stuff. I'm no example of healthy diet. I'm no Gwyneth Paltrow with the latest, coolest diet nonsense, whatever it is. But I do know a few things, and one of those is that it's easy enough to eat healthy. Get your rice, get your lentils, eat a lot of fruits and vegetables, and yes, meat as well in certain amounts. To be honest, we are trying to keep meat limited. I know that the keto diet thing is very popular these days, but man, it couldn't be easier. Eating fruits, vegetables, your rice, the kind of stuff that you are having. We eat rice a lot, and it's when you put it with the right ingredients, with a good amount of vegetables in it. Turmeric, it's anti-inflammatory, so that's great for you, and it ends up working out. You end up getting healthier when you eat right. There's no magic trick. It's pretty simple, but you have to do it. And I think that a lot of this is preventive. The healthier you eat, the more you keep an eye on not only the kind of food that you're eating, but also the quantity as well, which it also comes into play. If you're getting overweight, you're going to be paying that in with your knees, which I hear a lot of people complaining about. Yeah, my knees, well, of course, if you have 30, 40, 50 pounds of extra weight, by the time you're 60 or maybe even before that, your knees are going to be pretty messed up. In one of my previous videos, I was talking about staying in shape, and I showed, I think, my elliptical trainer, the thing for working on your cardio. That's good because you're not impacting in your knees as much as in your treadmill or running. So all these little things go towards that, keeping you in somewhat good health and not and avoiding the potential problems. And yeah, of course, when it comes to health, and I know that's tricky for some people, but a good health insurance, that's ideal, but it's not as easy. For a lot of people, it's going to be more about having a good supply of cash or money in case they have medical problems. But the bills you see sometimes are crazy. Folks with every little silly thing getting thousands of dollars. It sucks because it's practically impossible to prepare for that. If something happens to you and you're suddenly stuck with a $50,000 bill, ideally you would have a good health plan, not a health insurance. One of the things I learned over the years in different countries is there's a big difference between a health insurance and a health plan. A health plan covers you no matter what happens. With health insurance, it can be pretty crappy because those premiums start getting terrible, and eventually for some people they're left with nothing. And that would be one of the biggest things to be worried about growing older in certain places. And having the more options you have, it's always better. And this is something that unfortunately some older people end up realizing when it's a little bit too late. But having good health coverage is definitely up there in the list for folks preparing when they are a little bit older. Also the relationship with your family and your social circle and your network of people that you can come to trust. Ideally, I think it would eventually you end up needing help no matter what. It's going to be friends, it's going to be family, it's going to be your neighbor. Someone's eventually going to be, and this is something I struggle with because I don't like asking for help. I rarely do that. It's something that I do not like. I like being much more self-reliant in all aspects of life. But sometimes, eventually, you need help. Sometimes it's not even about being old. Sometimes it's just life the way it is. But definitely, as you grow older, you're going to be needing others. And it's important to work on that network of people around you, your friends, your family, your children, your kids. Have you been the kind of person that no one wants to be around with anymore? It kind of sucks, but it happens to a lot of people. I don't know what country it was, but don't quote. I think it was Germany. Were saying like half the people 60 or older are on their own, are alone. I don't know if that's exactly a quote, but it was something along those lines. Man, that sucks. That sounds quite terrible. I wouldn't want to be in that position. I try to be a good father in part because of that, because I don't want to reach that age in which you realize, man, I screwed up so much that I've been such a bastard my entire life that no one wants to be around me anymore. And especially not my kids. And if I find myself in that point, that would be freaking terrible. Not just because of preparedness and networking and the people that you need for helping you out and such, but also the kind of family you've built along the years. I mean, if you sucked so much, maybe your kids are no longer helping themselves, helping one another, and being there for one another either. That's what's a family supposed to be. If you sucked on that, you sucked at other things as well. Maybe those relationships that your kids may be needing for themselves as they grow older. They're going to be needing their brother, helping them out in different things. That's something you end up building. For some folks, it's about the relationship with their neighbors, with the people around them. This happens a lot in rural America, where you know your neighbors over the years, and sometimes they have a great relationship. They help one another out in different things, with labor, with moving stuff, with company. Sometimes all people need, guys. Sometimes sometimes it's invaluable for an older person that's alone on their own is just have someone drop by and talk for a couple hours, and that makes their day. I'm not kidding. You know this perfectly well. That just makes their day, maybe makes their week. If you stop by and just spend a couple hours talking, having a beer or coffee or mate or whatever it is you drink. So these are all things that don't happen by accident. If you've been a bastard your entire life and everyone hates you, maybe this is not something you're going to be having. And finally, trying to wrap up this video so as to not make it super long is, at the end of the day, you'll end up... we all end up the same way, and it's a good idea to leave your affairs in order. Of course, leave a will explaining what is it that you want. That's something that you actually should be doing no matter how old you are, because it's definitely, no one has any guarantees on anything here. It can happen to anyone at any time. So leaving your affairs in order, having a life insurance so that your family is set in case, not set, but at least have a little bit of help in a complicated time. That definitely makes a lot of a great difference. One of the someone sent me an email some time ago about the sad story, but a guy, he just got married, he had a kid, his wife died very soon, way before her time, and he was stuck grieving with a little kid, and they didn't have life insurance for her because it was not something that, of course, they were expecting, but it just ends up happening. And he mentioned that, in spite of all the terrible things, it would have helped a lot if there was a little bit more money so as to get around, so as to have maybe someone help out, get a daycare nanny or something to give him a hand and get things in order, and maybe not have to worry about money specifically at that time. So these are all things that you have to think about ahead of time. Not wait until it's too late. Guys, that's going to be all for now. Remember to subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell button thing so as to get future video updates and such. See you in our next video. Have a great day.